Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the new science fiction film Alpha Code, a film that is directed by Keone Waxman and it stars Bren Foster, Denise Richards and the UFC or the ex-UFC fighter Randy Couture. Now, this film is, as it likes to remind you, supposedly based on real-life events. I would take that with a large pinch of salt, if I'm honest. And it focuses on Bren Foster's character, Martin Fell, who sometime previously had a wife who disappeared mysteriously. He and his daughter are going back to the family home out in the country, and history repeats itself, and his daughter then goes missing under mysterious circumstances that seems to be linked and connected to extraterrestrial activity, shall we say. He is obviously desperate to find out what is going on. Randy Couture is, for want of a better word, a man in black. He's a government agent there basically to put a spanner in the works for him and try and track down like these alien conspirators and all this kind of stuff. And Denise Richards is initially a mysterious voice on the phone for this Martin character. They end up meeting up and they discover they have a deep connection that may well lead them to the disappearance of his daughter. Right, what are my thoughts on Alpha Code? Well, I think this had a decent amount of potential. I think for a low-budget film, and yes, this is a low-budget film, it does have some pretty good production values going on. It's got some good ideas, and the setup is actually pretty good. For me, though, the film ultimately failed to deliver anything thrilling, anything exciting, and it just didn't deliver. I found it terribly dull, actually, which is a shame, because I was very, very hopeful. After the first 15-20 minutes or so, I was hopeful that this could actually be half decent. We're going to get something pretty good. It was almost like a mix between, you know, one of those like Fire in the Sky, you know, that movie that recreated that abduction thing, and an X-Files episode. It almost felt like it was like a hybrid of something like that. Or certainly that was the intention early on. But I found it just really lost its way. I started to question whether I, really wanted to continue watching this when, he started meditating at one point in the film, trying to get in touch with his inner voice, this voice that will allow him to speak to these extraterrestrial beings and all this kind of stuff. And at that point, I was checking out big time. It was just very, very dull for the most part, and occasionally, I think to try and liven it up, they would throw in a chase or a fight, a fist fight or a gunfight occasionally. But they felt like afterthoughts, and they were quite poorly done as well. And what I just couldn't understand, you've got Randy Couture in your film, one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time, and you don't give him anything interesting to do in that regard. He does get into, certainly from memory anyway, certainly one fight that he pretty much ends up losing, and you're just kind of like, that's not the way to use him. However, saying that, the performances here by everybody are of a good standard. They don't take you out of the film. Denise Richards, is Denise Richards. She actually, is pretty okay in the film. Bren Foster is the driving force of this film. He's the main character, and actually Randy Couture, I actually think did pretty well too. To say that, obviously acting isn't his forte. But there was nothing here to keep you interested. The pacing is dreadfully slow, really slow, and to say it's supposed to be a film about extraterrestrials, we don't really get to meet in it. Arguably, okay, and I know it's a low-budget film. They could have done something creative with this, and do you know what? The creative thing they did with this film, rather than actually give us like full-on extraterrestrials or aliens or whatever, they give us alien hybrids. So I think you could figure out what that is. It's basically humans with different coloured eyes. okay, it's a cheap way of getting away with it, but for me, it's been done. It's been done to death in all those things. The X-Files, science fiction, for years they've kind of done that sort of thing. So unfortunately, this is a science fiction film that had an interesting premise and idea that failed to do anything interesting with these ideas at all. It just felt like everything you've seen before, and the majority of the things that you've seen before did them better than this film. There's not a huge amount here to recommend, unfortunately. It's not an awful film. You know, there are some low budget films you'll watch and you just kind of like clock watching, or you can't wait for it to end because you're just not invested at all. And while I wasn't necessarily invested in the characters here, it kind of kept me watching until the end. I was reasonably interested as to how they were going to get to the conclusion, not that the conclusion was concise, clear, or particularly interesting. So this is probably a science fiction film to avoid. It's a 4 out of 10. I did toy with the idea of a 5 out of 10 because, like I said, there's nothing horrifically bad about it. It's just also nothing particularly interesting about it either. So that's my review for Alpha Code. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, I'll be back with more reviews on the channel very, very soon.